I used to think Christmas had a special kind of magic, the kind that wrapped around you like a warm blanket, even when life felt cold. But this year, something felt different. The lights around the neighborhood looked the same, soft, golden, blinking gently against frosted windows. But for the first time, they didn't make me smile. Maybe because I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It started weeks earlier, little things, tiny shifts. My boyfriend, Noah, wasn't talking the same way anymore. Not cold, just distant, like his mind was always somewhere I couldn't follow. I told myself it was stress, work, holiday pressure, anything except the one possibility that made my stomach twist. I kept brushing it away. Love makes you good at pretending sometimes. But even then, I didn't expect everything to crack open the way it did. The night before Christmas Eve, I was wrapping the last of Noah's gifts on the living room floor. Snow was tapping lightly against the window, the tree lights were glowing, and my hands were shaking a little, not from the cold, but from excitement. I had gotten him something meaningful this year, something personal, something I thought he'd treasure. It's funny how you can be living inside a moment that feels perfect while something terrible is creeping quietly toward you. My phone buzzed. Just once, a soft little vibration against the carpet. I didn't check it immediately. I was too busy folding wrapping paper and trying not to ruin the tape edge with my teeth. But then it buzzed again, and again, 3 times in a row. Not messages, notifications, app alerts, social things, but they came with that strange urgency that makes your heart do a weird little skip. I finally grabbed the phone. Nothing unusual, except one name at the top of my messages list: Noah. My heart fluttered. He rarely texted when he knew I was home. I opened it, expecting something cute, maybe a Christmas countdown, maybe a silly joke. But the message was short, cold, shaped like a blade. I need to think. Don't text me for a while. That was it. No explanation, no warmth, no context, just those words, as if someone had replaced him with a stranger who didn't know how to speak to me anymore. I stared at the screen for so long, my eyes started to burn. My breath felt trapped in my chest, like my lungs forgot how to work. I kept waiting for a follow-up message. Haha, ignore that, or sorry, wrong wording, or literally anything that made sense. But nothing came. The tree lights suddenly felt too bright, the room too quiet, and for the first time that month, I felt scared. A quiet, cold kind of fear that starts in your stomach and crawls up slowly, inch by inch. I typed a reply. Are you okay? But I didn't send it. Something in my body stopped me. A heaviness, a warning. Instead, I put my phone face down. I tried to breathe. I tried to convince myself he didn't mean it the way it sounded. People said things when they were stressed. Maybe he just needed a moment. Maybe I shouldn't overthink it. But I did, all night. Every few minutes, I'd flip the phone over again, hoping for an explanation. There was none. And when I did finally fall asleep, long after midnight, it was restless, full of fragments of dreams where Noah kept walking further and further away from me, disappearing into holiday lights that blurred until they looked like tears. I woke up Christmas Eve with that message still sitting at the top of my screen, unanswered, unexplained, unchanged. I tried to go about the day normally. I really did. I baked cookies with my mom. I wrapped presents. I laughed with my sister. But all of it felt hollow, like I was acting out a version of myself. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I told myself I just needed to see him, just for a moment, just to understand what he meant. Maybe he'd hug me, maybe he'd smile, that soft smile he always had for me, and everything would snap back into place. So I put on my coat, my scarf, my gloves. The snow was falling harder now, thick flakes drifting down in slow motion. My breath came out white in the air as I walked to his apartment. Every step felt heavier than the last. When I reached his street, something in me hesitated, a strange shiver, like my instincts were tugging at my sleeve. Don't go. But my heart had already made the decision long before my head could argue. There was a faint glow in his window, warm light, shadows moving. I convinced myself it was him, pacing, overthinking like me. Maybe he needed to show up and help him talk. Hope is a dangerous thing sometimes. It makes you see what you want, not what's real. I climbed the steps. My gloves trembled as I raised my hand to knock. But I didn't need to, because before I even touched the door, I heard voices inside. Not just Noah's, a woman's, soft, laughing. And then his voice, warmer than it had been with me in weeks. Something inside me slipped, like the floor wasn't stable anymore. I stepped back without meaning to. The cold suddenly felt sharper, like winter had teeth. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I didn't even breathe for a moment. I just stood there, staring at the cracked light under the door, listening to a version of him I didn't recognize. And for the first time since that message, I realized something very, very real. He didn't need space. He needed distance from me. I finally turned to leave, snow gathering in my hair, my heartbeat echoing in the quiet Christmas night. And as I walked away, I had no idea that what happened next, what the new year would bring, would change everything in ways I couldn't imagine. Here is your story continuation, with only the excessive vertical spaces removed between paragraphs. I don't remember much about the walk home that night, just snow, soft, endless, falling so quietly it felt like the world was trying not to disturb me. Or maybe I was the one who felt too broken to be touched. When I reached my driveway, my phone buzzed again. For a split second, my heart leapt, stupidly, hoping it was Noah, finally explaining, apologizing, undoing the damage he'd caused. But it wasn't him. It was a notification, a TikTok. At first, I didn't think much of it. I don't even follow that many people. But when I opened the app, the universe punched me in the stomach. The very first video on my For You page was Noah, laughing, smiling, in the same warm tone he hadn't used with me for weeks. But it wasn't the warmth that shattered me. It was the girl next to him. The same voice I'd heard through his door. She leaned into him effortlessly, like she belonged there, like they had been practicing this closeness for a long time. Her head rested on his shoulder as they both laughed at some joke I couldn't hear, because the sound in my ears was only my heartbeat, loud, heavy, wrong. Their caption was simple: Christmas vibes with my favorite person. Trump yellow. Not me, her. I felt my throat tighten, but the app didn't care. It didn't know I was dying a little inside. It just kept playing the video on loop like some kind of cruel punishment. Every replay felt like another door closing. Another truth hitting me in the chest. Another reminder that Noah hadn't needed space. He'd already filled it with someone else. I locked my phone and pressed it against my chest, trying to breathe. But my body wasn't cooperating. My hands were cold, my cheeks numb, and that ache in my stomach, the one I'd been ignoring for weeks, finally sharpened into the truth I couldn't run from anymore. He didn't accidentally drift away. He didn't slowly fall out of love. He didn't need time to think. He had replaced me. And the worst part? He started doing it long before he ever told me. When I finally walked into the house, my mom took one look at me and frowned. "Sweetheart, are you okay? You look pale." I opened my mouth to lie, to say I was fine, just cold, just tired, but the words wouldn't form. I just shook my head, went straight to my room, and closed the door. I didn't cry right away. The pain was too deep, too strange. It wasn't sharp like heartbreak usually is. It felt dull but heavy, like I was sinking into something I couldn't climb out of. I sat on my bed, staring at the wall, Noah's message replaying in my mind over and over, like a ghost whispering in loops. "I need to think. Don't text me for a while." He wasn't thinking. He wasn't alone. He wasn't confused. He was happy with someone else, while I was still buying gifts for him, still wrapping them, still believing he cared. Eventually, the tears came, slow at first, then faster, until I couldn't breathe anymore and had to bury my face in a pillow just to muffle the sounds. But crying doesn't last forever. Eventually, even heartbreak runs out of energy. At some point, I wiped my cheeks, sat up, and forced myself to breathe. I grabbed my journal, something I hadn't touched in months, and flipped to a blank page. My handwriting was shaky, messy, but I wrote one sentence with a kind of stubborn determination I didn't know I had. If he can move on before Christmas, I will move on before New Year. It felt ridiculous the moment I wrote it, impossible, dramatic, but something inside me clicked. Not strength, not confidence, just refusal. Refusal to let this be the thing that breaks me. Refusal to let his choices become the story of my life. Refusal to spend another second waiting for someone who wasn't waiting for me. That night, instead of checking Noah's socials again, even though I wanted to, badly, I did something else. I blocked him, everywhere. It was impulsive, emotional, maybe even childish. But it was the first decision in weeks that felt like it belonged to me. And then I slept. Not well, but enough. Christmas morning arrived quietly. The world outside was bright, crisp, peaceful. My heart wasn't healed, not even close, but it wasn't collapsing anymore either. My family tried their best to cheer me up. My mom gave me the softest blanket I've ever touched. My sister made me hot cocoa. My brother attempted to tell jokes so bad that I had to laugh. But the real shift happened in the afternoon. That's when someone unexpected showed up. A knock on the door. Gentle but firm. I thought maybe it was one of our neighbors dropping by with cookies, or a delivery guy. Anyone but someone who knew what I was going through. But when I opened the door, I froze. It was Eli, my childhood friend, the boy who used to sit with me on the swings in middle school, the one who moved away years ago. And he was standing on my porch, taller, older, holding a small gift bag in his hand, smiling the softest smile I'd seen in months. "Hey," he said quietly, "your mom told me what happened. I thought you might need some company today." I didn't know what to say. For a moment, I just stood there, shocked, confused, almost embarrassed. But then something inside me loosened, like a knot untying, like my heart remembering it wasn't alone. I stepped back, letting him in, and somewhere deep inside me, a new, faint kind of warmth began to flicker. Small, fragile, but real. Something was changing. Something was beginning. And I had no idea then that this small moment, this unexpected knock on Christmas Day, would reshape my entire New Year in ways I never, ever saw coming. Eli didn't try to fix anything. He didn't offer advice or ask for details. He just sat with me on the couch, our knees almost touching, the Christmas tree lights reflecting in his eyes. For a while, we didn't talk at all. He handed me the gift bag. Inside was a tiny snow globe, the kind you shake and watch the flakes swirl around a miniature house. I saw it and thought of you, he said, a little sheepish. You always loved snow, remember? I nodded, turning the globe over in my hands, watching the storm inside. It felt like a metaphor for my heart. Chaos swirling, but something solid at the center. I wanted to say thank you, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I just set the globe on the coffee table and leaned back, letting the silence settle between us. My family drifted in and out of the living room, giving us space. My mom brought in a plate of cookies and a mug of tea, squeezing my shoulder before she left. Eli smiled at her, then looked at me. You don't have to talk about it, he said quietly. But if you want to, I'm here. I surprised myself by nodding. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the way Eli's presence felt like a safe place to land. I told him everything, not just about Noah, but about the slow unraveling, the way I'd felt myself disappearing, the ache of loving someone who was already gone. I told him about the message, the TikTok, the girl in the video, the way it all felt like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Eli listened, really listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to make it better. He just let me pour it all out, the words tumbling over each other, messy and raw. When I finally stopped, I felt lighter, like I'd set down a heavy bag I'd been carrying for too long. I'm sorry, he said, his voice soft. You didn't deserve any of that. I shrugged, wiping at my eyes. I guess I should have seen it coming. He shook his head. No, you trusted him. That's not a weakness. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the faint hum of the heater and the distant laughter of my siblings in the kitchen. I glanced at Eli, noticing how much he'd changed since we were kids. He was taller, his jaw sharper, but his eyes were the same. Kind, steady, a little bit sad. Why did you come back? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a little embarrassed. My family moved back last month. I didn't know if you'd want to see me. But when your mom called, I just thought maybe you could use an old friend. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and vulnerability. I'm glad you did. We spent the rest of the afternoon together, talking about everything and nothing. We reminisced about old times, bike rides in the summer, snowball fights in the park, the time we tried to build an igloo and it collapsed on us. For the first time in days, I laughed, really laughed, the kind that bubbles up from somewhere deep, surprising, and a little bit wild. As the sun set, Eli stood to leave. I should get home. But if you want to talk again or just hang out, I'm around. I walked him to the door, the snow globe still clutched in my hand. Thank you, I said, meaning it more than I could express. He smiled, pulling his coat tighter. Anytime, Em. Merry Christmas. After he left, I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching the snow fall. The ache in my chest was still there, But it felt different now, less like a wound, more like a bruise, something that would fade given time. That night, I lay in bed, the snow globe on my nightstand. I shook it once, watching the flakes swirl, and thought about how, sometimes, when everything feels broken, the universe sends you exactly what you need, even if you don't know you need it. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look for messages from Noah. For the first time, I didn't want to. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through my window. The world outside was bright, the snow sparkling like a fresh start. I stretched, feeling a little lighter, a little stronger. My heart still hurt, but it was beating. I was still here. Downstairs, my family was already awake, the house filled with the smell of pancakes and coffee. My mom smiled when she saw me, relief in her eyes. My sister hugged me, tighter than usual. My brother made a joke about my Christmas miracle mood, and I actually laughed. Later that day, Eli texted, just a simple message. Want to go for a walk? I hesitated for a moment, then typed back, I'd like that. We met at the park, bundled in scarves and hats, our breath puffing in the cold air. We walked in comfortable silence, the snow crunching under our boots. Eventually, Eli spoke. You know, you're allowed to be sad, but you're also allowed to move on. I nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle in my chest. I want to. I just don't know how. He smiled, gentle and patient, one step at a time. We walked for hours, talking about hopes, fears, the future. By the time we parted ways, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized that maybe Christmas magic wasn't about perfect moments or happy endings. Maybe it was about finding light in the darkness, about letting yourself heal, about opening your heart to new beginnings. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew that whatever the new year brought, I was ready to face it. The days between Christmas and New Year's always felt like a strange limbo, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to shift. This year, that feeling was sharper than ever. I moved through each day with a new kind of awareness, noticing the way the light changed in the afternoons, the way my family's laughter echoed through the house, the way my own heart felt both fragile and fierce. Eli and I started spending more time together. It wasn't planned, not really. He'd text in the morning, sometimes just a meme, sometimes a simple, "How are you today?" And I'd find myself smiling at my phone, surprised by how much I looked forward to his messages. We went for walks, sometimes in the park, sometimes just around the block, talking about everything and nothing. He never pushed, never asked for more than I could give. He just showed up, steady and kind, letting me set the pace. One afternoon, we found ourselves at the old playground where we used to spend hours as kids. The swings creaked in the cold wind, and the slide was dusted with snow. We sat on the swings, bundled in coats and scarves, our breath hanging in the air. "Do you remember when we tried to build a snow fort over there?" Eli asked, nodding toward the far corner of the park. I laughed, the memory bright and clear. We thought we were engineers. It collapsed in 5 minutes. He grinned. We were so proud, though, even when it fell apart. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized how much I'd missed this, missed him. Not just as a friend, but as someone who made the world feel a little less heavy. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for being here, for not making me talk about Noah all the time." Eli shrugged, his cheeks pink from the cold. "You don't owe me anything, Em. I just want you to be okay." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. I'm getting there, I think. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the distant shouts of kids sledding down a nearby hill. I felt the ache in my chest ease, just a little. Maybe healing wasn't about forgetting. Maybe it was about making space for something new. That night, I found myself thinking about Noah, not with anger, but with a kind of distant sadness. I realized I didn't want him back. I didn't want to go back to the girl who waited for texts, who ignored her own instincts, who let someone else decide her worth. I wanted to be the girl who chose herself, who let go of what hurt, who opened her heart to the possibility of something better. On New Year's Eve, my family threw our usual small party. There were snacks and board games, music and laughter. I wore a sparkly sweater my sister had picked out for me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. Eli came by just before midnight, carrying a thermos of hot chocolate and a shy smile. "Thought you might want to watch the fireworks," he said. We stood outside, bundled up against the cold, watching as bursts of color lit up the sky. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8, and I felt a surge of hope, wild and unexpected. When the clock struck midnight, Eli turned to me. "Happy New Year, Em." I smiled, feeling something shift inside me. "Happy New Year, Eli." He hesitated, then reached for my hand. His fingers were warm, steady. I squeezed back, letting myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. As the fireworks faded and the world grew quiet again, I realized that the pain of the past didn't have to define me. I could choose to move forward, to let go, to open my heart to whatever came next. And as I stood there, hand in hand with Eli, I knew that I was ready. The days that followed felt lighter. I still had moments where the past tugged at me, but they grew softer, easier to let go. With every sunrise, I found a little more of myself again. Eli and I kept walking, talking, laughing, slowly building something honest and new. I realized healing isn't about forgetting what hurt you, but about letting it teach you how to love yourself more fiercely. If you're listening and your heart is broken, I hope you remember sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another. You deserve someone who chooses you every day. And sometimes the best kind of magic is letting yourself believe in new beginnings. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, please subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and remember, you're never as alone as you think.